So, guys, training camp is almost here, and there's one problem sitting on this roster right now that has me more nervous than anything else heading into camp. And no, it's not what most people are already yelling about. Everybody's locked in on the offensive line, and look, I get it, that matters. If a certain young left tackle doesn't show up looking like a real answer, this front office is going to be forced into a decision nobody wants. Moving a Pro Bowl guard clean off his spot just to patch a hole. That alone should make you a little uneasy, but that's not even the battle I'm most worried about. Because over on defense, there's a position group where two guys who were supposed to be answers by now still haven't proven they can even stay on the field. One's coming off a foot problem that had to get fixed urgently, and the other was a guy we all thought was a lock first rounder before the injuries started piling up. And behind them, it is chaos. A stack of bodies all clawing for maybe one open roster spot. If this camp doesn't go the right way at that spot, I genuinely think it's the one thing that could sink this defense before the season even starts. So stick with me, because I'm walking you through exactly why and who's actually in the mix. What's up, Cowboys? Welcome to the NFL Playbook, Cowboys. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Okay, let's start with left tackle because I have to get this off my chest first. I know a lot of people don't even want to call it a real competition, and honestly, they're probably right, but that doesn't make it any less important. Everything hinges on Tyler Guyton walking into camp healthy and actually looking like a guy who belongs out there on an island protecting the blind side. Because here's the thing nobody wants to say out loud. If he doesn't look capable, this team is going to hit the panic button. And that panic button means yanking their all-pro guard off his spot and shoving him out to left tackle instead. I don't care what anybody tells you about best five on the field, best five, that is a massive failure of an offseason if it comes to that. So yeah, I'm watching every single camp rep this guy takes. His health, his footwork, all of it. But honestly, as much as that scares me, it's not even my top concern. My top concern is cornerback, and I mean that with my whole chest. Think about who we're actually counting on back there. You got DaRon Bland, who dealt with a foot injury that had to get surgically corrected. You've got Shavon Revel, a guy who was supposed to be one of those can't-miss, sure-thing first-round prospects, except he's never actually been healthy enough to show us anything real on tape. Two guys, two major question marks, and we're just supposed to trust that both of them break out at the same time? I mean, once you start seeing foot issues pop up, in any sport, honestly, that's when you start getting a little scared, right? It's not just one incident, it's a pattern, and patterns worry me. And look, they did add depth. Cobie Durant came over from the Rams, and from what I've heard, on a lot of other rosters, that guy would just be considered a starter, so that's a nice safety net to have. There's also a fourth-round rookie in the mix, Devin Moore out of Florida, and I'm actually a big fan of his tape. But even with him, in theory, a fourth-rounder making the 53 isn't exactly a guarantee, it's just a strong possibility. Now, here's where it gets wild to me. That fifth cornerback spot, there are like 6 different guys fighting for basically one roster spot. You've got Caelen Carson, you've got a veteran they brought in named Derion Kendrick, you've got Reddy Steward who's been around the building a while, Childress, and Josh Butler. 6 names, 1 spot, maybe 2 if they're lucky. At most positions on this roster, I feel like I can call the winner right now just based on what I've seen. Corner, I genuinely cannot call it, it's that wide open. And here's why this scares me more than the offensive line drama. This defense does not have the pass rush right now to bail out bad cornerback play. If the corners are struggling, there is no elite pressure up front masking that for 4 seconds of play. So basically, we need 2 banged-up guys to hit their ceiling and stay healthy for this defense to reach its full potential. And nobody gets a perfect roster, I know that. Every team's got holes. But when I think about what could realistically blow up this defense turning into something good, corner is the first thing I point to. It's not complicated to draw up either. Even if Shavon Revel is fully healthy, you have to remember this league plays a ton more man coverage now than people realize. Something like 22% of snaps league-wide run true man defense. And that's just such a different style than what he grew up playing in college, where he was basically living in man coverage on a huge percentage of snaps. His rookie year, for all intents and purposes, was basically wasted from a development standpoint. So having sky-high expectations for him right out the gate, that feels risky to me. Same thing with DaRon Bland. When you've had a foot injury and the fix for it had to carry over into the next season, That's the kind of thing that keeps me up worrying, honestly. All right, now let's shift over to a name I think a lot of Cowboys fans are sleeping on, and that's Jaishawn Barham. When they drafted him, there was so much buzz about how this front office might be able to use him all over the field in different ways. And naturally, as fans do, we all started projecting big things onto him before he's even played a snap. But let me give you a realistic bar here. Last year, I thought Donovan Ezeruwaku had a solid rookie season. There were some rookie moments where he wore down a bit, sure, but there were also flashes, run defense, getting home to the quarterback, stuff that made you feel good about the pick. If Barham has that kind of rookie year, just at a different position, I would call that a total win. Here's what makes his situation tricky though. When they actually drafted him, he was a Michigan guy who lined up on the edge and rushed the passer. That's what everybody scouted him as. Then right after the draft, in the press conference, they come out and say, nope, we're playing him at inside linebacker off the ball. So basically, every scouting report on the guy got thrown out the window overnight. And then it got even more interesting once DeMarvion Overshown revealed he's actually the one wearing the green dot, calling the defense from the middle linebacker spot. So now you got a guy who's never played middle linebacker, never called a defense in his life, stepping into that exact role. That's not exactly the smoothest transition you could ask for. They did bring in a veteran named D. Winters, who's more of a weak side type, similar to Overshown. And the next guy up behind him is Shamar James, who's only around 220 pounds, so again, more of that rangy weak side profile. Meanwhile, Barham is 240 pounds of pure force. When you watch him play the position, he punishes anybody trying to block him. That's exactly what excites me about him. Out of every rookie on this roster, he's the one I'm rooting hardest for to stay healthy and have a great camp. Because if he can make that transition back to a role he actually played in college against a tougher level of competition, it adds a dimension this defense straight up does not have right now. They've got plenty of guys who can fly around and make tackles in space, but they don't have a true thumper in that linebacker room. Somebody who, when a guard gets to the second level clean and tries to seal him off for a big run, just puts that guy on his back and creates a play for somebody else or makes the play himself. Barham is that guy if the transition goes well. It really just comes down to how much they trust Overshown's health and comfort level running the defense from that middle linebacker spot. Last thing I want to touch on, and honestly, this one matters more than people give it credit for, the quarterback room behind Dak Prescott. At this stage of his career, I don't worry about his football IQ or his ability to read a defense. He's seen everything there is to see. The only real concern with him at this point is health, plain and simple. And look, we watched Tony Romo go through this exact thing late in his career, all that knowledge in his head, but he just couldn't stay on the field long enough to use it. So, the real question becomes, if something happens to Dak, do we actually trust the backup situation? And honestly, I feel better about it now than I have in a while. I feel better about it than when it was Trey Lance taking those reps. This organization has a track record of burning draft capital on backup quarterbacks who just never panned out. And I'd honestly rather they just go sign a guy off the street who's actually played real NFL snaps and had some success doing it. Now, if something happened to Dak that was truly season-ending, that's a different conversation entirely. That's a lost season, full stop. But if we're just talking about surviving a month without him, I feel a lot more comfortable with Sam Howell under center than I ever did with Trey Lance or Joe Milton. Think about it like this. To survive losing your starter for real, you basically need one of two situations. Either you've got a legitimate long-term answer already sitting in the wings ready to go, or you're a stacked enough roster that you can plug in a proven veteran. Somebody like Joe Flacco was a few years back. A guy who's already won playoff games just there to hold the fort. And that's really the situation we're in now. Can this roster withstand losing Dak for a month? I think the answer is yes, but only if this team is playing like the best version of itself. Losing a stretch like an 1-3 or worse, an 0-4 run, that would be brutal to recover from. But if you can get a capable backup through a manageable part of the schedule and come out 2-2, you survive that just fine. And here's the part that really puts it in perspective for me. This is realistically a 10-11 win football team as currently built. In a 17-game season, that gap between 10 wins and 11 wins is bigger than people think. There's basically a cliff there. So if losing Dak for a stretch costs you 2 extra games you wouldn't have otherwise lost, That could be the entire difference between hosting a playoff game or watching from home. That's why I feel better about this backup situation than in years past. But I'm still watching it closely because in a league this competitive, the margins are razor thin. And training camp is where we finally start getting real answers instead of just hope.